Tom Coronel, who of course we've seen racing with Lister this year, and in 5th place Duncan Heisman, another Dutchman of course, and another Carly Motorsport car like Coronel, although Coronel and reigning 2001 Dutch touring car champion Sander van Es are in red and white Marlboro. Oh, I can't say that, can I, cars? So they look different from the other Carly Motorsport cars, but are effectively their teammates. Sander van Es, the Dutch champion, in 7th place, and he took over the title in fact from Duncan Heisman, who was the 2000 Dutch touring car champion with Carly Motorsport BMW. So Carly having plenty of success at home and looking here to beat Roberto Ravalia's much fancied team, who started the season with Peter Cox in really fine form, running away and hiding in the first few races until we got to many call the turning point, where Heisman hit a fine vein of form and then Cox hit him and subsequently fell out of the race. That was really where Heisman's season took off, and from then it's been a cat and mouse, or in fact a dog-eat-dog war out there. It's been very, very tight indeed, and the championship with just 3 points between them, 117 for Cox, 114 for Heisman. It will have to be decided here, and let's hope that it is not decided in the unfortunate way the Super Touring title went, with one of the rivals ending up in the dirt. So cars on the warm-up lap, and David, Tommy Rustad again on pole, and again fastest by, well, not a significant margin here, but enough perhaps to allow the Nissan driver to claim another victory, I think.
Yes, he's very pleased with the way the car's going at the moment. He's really been on top for the last couple of races, having won both at Nürburgring and Jarama. So he needs to get off that line, get round the first corner and try and get himself a little bit of a gap, and then pull away, which is what he's managed to do for the last couple of races. Certainly halfway through the season he managed to find a little bit with the Nissan Primera for Tommy, and he's made very good use of that. Extra grip, extra power, whatever it is they managed to get on that car, but it certainly worked wonders for him, and he's now all of a sudden 3rd in the championship, far too far away to come anywhere close to the two in front, Peter Cox and Duncan Heisman, but certainly he's out there looking for his 3rd win in a row.
Alan Blenko, a regular on the touring car programme in Great Britain, in car 37. Gary Ailes, Alfa Romeo 156. He normally drives a Ford Fiesta and finished, I believe, 3rd or 4th in the British Fiesta Championship, don't remember, but he's there on the grid. So too are regulars Tom Ferrier and James Hansen. So Peter Cox versus Duncan Heisman, but that battle will have to wait, because out front Tommy Rustad leading the field round to the grid for this final super production race of the European calendar as well, because it's unlikely that super production will be a full European Championship next year. Somewhere in an amalgam of super production, super touring and other super duper saloon car rules, we should have a new outright formula for this championship next year on the Super Racing Weekend programme, and we will hopefully see BMWs and Alfa Romeos and Volvos and Nissans, and who knows, maybe cars here like the Renault Clios that have come from Holland, or a few others talking about joining the championship. And let's hope that with such a close and competitive field all the way to the end in the super production and the super touring next year, can produce at least some of the racing that we've seen this year. On board with Duncan Heisman, we have an onboard camera also with Peter Cox 3 spots further back down the grid. Heisman pulls into place. There he is, the 3rd white car down there on the left-hand side of the grid as we look at it, and 2 rows further, or a row further back, 3 places further back on the other side of the grid is Peter Cox. So this is a high-tension moment for Cox and 2 for Heisman, because both of them need to fare well here to clinch the championship. Neither of them is in the position where they can cruise and make the other guy do all the work. And out front, Tommy Rustad looks as though he's determined to take 20 points, so the rest of them will be scrabbling for runner-up spot, which is only 15. Let's see what happens. The red lights are on, the revs rise, the man with the green flag allows the grid to be cleared for the final time, and in a moment Roland Brunserrider will throw the switch that will start this final super production championship decider. Slow away from the front row of the grid is Norman Seaman, but Tommy Rustad didn't get a great start either. Tom Coronel looked good, and Tommy Rustad touched Tobias Massini. Rustad survives as Norman Seaman hit Rustad into Tobias Massini, but a And that is Peter Cox. Peter Cox on the left. No, it's Norman Seaman. Oh, Martin, calm down. Norman Seaman, thank you, David. Tommy Rustad leads then from who? Not Tom Coronel, surely. From Duncan Heisman in second place. Tom Coronel third. Peter Cox trying to come through in fourth. Then Sander Van Ness. Then the 11 car, which is the Edenbridge car of Tom Ferrier in fifth and sixth place. So Rustad leads, but Heisman is right with him. And there it was. You saw it just a little afterwards, actually. Norman Seaman leaning on Rustad, shoved Rustad into Massini, who was ahead of him, David, or half ahead. That's what spun Massini across. And hoist by his own petard there, Norman Seaman, the biter bit.
Yes, it was a bit unfortunate at the beginning, taking two of the first three cars out of the race. But that's what happens in motorsport. Nothing, you can have all the plans in the world, but once that flag drops or those lights turn to green, then everything changes.
There is Peter Cox in third place, so Duncan Heisman second, Peter Cox third from eighth. He got away nicely. He's got past Tom Coronel, and he is also, in fact, Tom Coronel has been, been passed by Cox. Right behind him, he's got Tom Ferrier. Ferrier has got past Sander Van Ness in the other BMW, and so too has one of the CBME cars, and that is Gianni Morbidelli has got past Sander Van Ness. So Sander Van Ness down in seventh place. I didn't really expect that from the Dutch touring car champion. Van Ness, a very amiable young man who started in single seaters, and I've always really rather rated him. So let's see if he can recover. And Cox really dives in hard to try and pass, but the safety car is out. So will that pass stand if he makes it? Should he be making it? Past a yellow flag. He was alongside, but he was not passed. Now then. There is one for Roland Brunserrider. I would not want to call that. He certainly started making the move before he got to the yellow flag and before he got to the safety car, but David, I don't know how the rules work. Are you supposed to have completed it? If you're halfway alongside, you have to back off. If you're partly the way past, does the other car have to back off? Not sure. I have a feeling they might let that one stay as it was.
I think certainly it looks as though Heisman was actually in front. Here's a replay of the start. You can see Norman Seaman bumped into Rustad. He moved over, hit Toby Massini, turned Massini round in front, and that shot him straight into Norman Seaman, who actually started the whole thing off. So Norman Seaman coming off worse there. Unfortunately, the man who came out of it very badly was Toby Massini.
And the Nissan there weaving through the back. Well, very, very impressive indeed. So Toby Massini unfortunately out of the race, and that's a shame. British fans who saw him racing with great verve in his Honda Integra R last year in the National Saloon Cup will miss him. And Rustad with a puncture. Now, I saw that black mark on the front of the car earlier, and just before the replay I was going to say, do you think there's a chance he might have got away scot-free without any damage? Obviously he has not, and that may well be why he ran wide and Heisman was able to get inside him through the last flying corner, because I don't think he would have done it normally. We're going for a break. We'll be back with more in a minute from Estoril. Under the safety car on lap 2 of the final round of the Euro SBC at Estoril, and dramas for Tommy Rustad, who lost the lead at the end of lap 1 as his damaged left front tyre let the air out and allowed Duncan Heisman to come through. He's had to do an entire lap on that tyre, but now he's been able to jump into the pits. The yellow lights are still on the safety car, and as they come past the pits, the lights are off. This will be the last lap behind the safety car. Duncan Heisman leads the race now. Patrick Cox in second place, 3 points apart in the championship. And if they finish first and second, either way round, that will decide it. So, there are 5 points for the lead, but the team now, David's emoting furiously and gesticulating. Come on, get that tyre on and off quickly. Get him out, because if he can do it now and really go like a bat out of hell, he could get onto the tail of that safety car queue. They're about a third of the way around the lap at the moment, going slowly. And this is desperately laborious stuff, David, with a handgun and those nuts. It's not a standard practice. Into the pits, incidentally, too, has come one of our newcomers. That's the number 29 dealer team Renault Clio of Franz Verschoor. And that's a long, old pit stop, unfortunately, for Tommy Rustad. But now, if he really goes hell for leather, he might just catch the back of the queue. And then we will be trying to keep you up to date from the screens of what I think will be a very exciting fight back. At the moment, no. Safety car lights off. They'll go green this time around. Heisman leads Cox. Coronel third. That's the Marlborough car, the BMW. Fourth is Ferrier. Rustad's been stopped at the end of the pit lane, and that is shocking. He's been sent back. Now he's been released. Well, that is appalling, because the pit lane exit should not be closed under a safety car for any consideration. So he's now been finally let out, but that's really put a kibosh on that. So Tom Coronel third anyway, Tom Ferrier fourth for Edenbridge, and that will greatly lift the spirits, if they needed any lifting, of Mezzanine, his main sponsors, or the team's main sponsors, who are here in force, thoroughly enjoying a holiday in Portugal. And in fifth place, Gianni Morbidelli. Sixth place, Sander Van Ness. That's the second of the Marber cars, behind the black and orange CBME car of Morbidelli. And the driver in the safety car leaning on it a little now. Morbidelli in fifth place, Sander Van Ness in sixth, Paolo Roberti in seventh, James Hansen, the other Edenbridge car, in eighth, Louis Villamil in ninth place, and in 10th place is, I'm going to say Ari Molinar, but it's not Ari Molinar as they go green again. It is Donald Molinar, I think it's probably his son, in the other Renault Clio. So Heisman versus Cox, the final battle. It's on again, 14 laps to decide it. This is the battle for the championship. Heisman, and Cox punts him up the backside, and Heisman has time as he recovers to give Cox the finger. Heisman's in the gravel, Cox survives on the grass, and is that the championship over? In which case, Peter Cox, you should be very, very ashamed of yourself, because that was not anything other than an over-ambitious move.
No, it was very bad at that point. Yes, you've seen the getting very upset there with Duncan Heisman, getting knocked off. You could see Cox had locked himself up going into the back there, and straight into the back of Heisman and knocked him off. Cox has got going, but you have to remember that well, that's it.
That's the end of it, basically. That is the end of it. If Heisman doesn't score, Cox will win by 3 points, even if he doesn't score a point now. And that was what Heisman said, and he knew after we went to Jarama that he had to finish the race. If he was, he said, cynically punted off, then there you go. So Cox coming down at the restart on the brakes, just makes contact with the back right corner of Heisman, not square up behind him, but just enough to tap him into a spin. Now, you can read it either way. If you're a fan of Cox, you can say, well, he was trying to make a move and just slightly misjudged it. If you're not a fan of Cox, you can maybe give him the benefit of the doubt. Certainly, if you're in the Heisman camp, you're not likely to. Heisman, as we saw there, running back up the pit lane, and I guarantee the first door he bangs on will be marked R. Brunserrider, clerk of the course, because he is going to get his objection in nice and strongly. However, it's all over as James Hansen, Tom Ferrier rather, slides very wide over the curbs. Tom Coronel is our third new race leader as he comes past the pits ahead of Gianni Morbidelli and Sander Van Ness, holding off Tom Ferrier. Van Ness has just got back in front of him. And look at that, weaving under braking. All right, David, you know, these cars do weave around a lot under braking. They have got production-based transmissions and brakes and everything. But still, you know, I have to say, a black flag for car, well, irrelevant, doesn't matter. Black flagging him for dangerous driving is neither here nor there. It's all done and dusted, and the cynics among us will say he's done what he needed to do, which is get it close enough to Heisman to punt him off the track. So a black flag now is irrelevant. You can't put Heisman back in the race. You can't undo the championship, and they're hardly likely, I think, David, to dock him points.
I think it's very unlikely. I don't know of any thing in the regulations actually allows them to do that, to dock them points for what can we call it, dangerous driving, driving without due care attention. It's as bad as you can possibly get. We've seen him coming down into the down the straight into the first corner. He was behind. You could see the car was weaving under the braking. If he thought he wasn't going to make it, he could have pulled out from behind Heisman and gone down the inside, trying very hard still to try and get it stopped. At least the two of them would have hit side by side, and there was a chance for the two of them to get round the corner. Okay, maybe a little bit sideways, and maybe another problem. But to hit him straight up the back, and he was certainly in line, and didn't look as though he was even trying to come away from behind him. He just hit him up the back and turned him around.
Yeah, again, the steering trace there will tell all, but certainly from what we saw, it didn't look like he was necessarily trying to make the corner. There wasn't much in the way of steering going on there. Heisman is back in the pits, and he's with the Carley team members, and I'm sure that they will try their very best to calm him down. But the 30-year-old will take a lot of calming, and I have to say Peter Cox, when he comes into the pits, had better make darn sure that he is a long way from Duncan Heisman. He is being commiserated with by his brother in the leather jacket, Patrick Heisman, 5 times the Porsche Super Cup champion. And Patrick, fantastic. And younger brother Duncan, well, Duncan's okay, but you can see he is hardly a happy man. And I have to say, I'm sorry, because we're completely ignoring Coronel and Morbidelli, and we really shouldn't, because they're putting on a fine battle, a really fine battle out front. Sander Van Ness also with Villemille and Ferrier, 3rd, 4th and 5th, and they're putting on a great battle too. But a shame to see both of our touring car titles here settled by one of the rivals not finishing the race, which has been the case here. And as we saw, Gabriele Tarquini, the onboard replay, Nicola Larini not only didn't give him enough room, but actually tapped him to try and ensure that he spun off. And I'm afraid that our reading of Peter Cox's move on Duncan Heisman comes under the same thing. Not fair, not nice, not sporting. Tom Coronel leads then from Gianni Morbidelli. Sander Van Ness under pressure right behind, though, as we saw there in that last longer shot from Villemille. Now, don't forget, Massini in his Alfa was second on the grid, and Villemille has really shown the pace in that car as well on occasions, with Massini as his teammate. Although the cars are differently liveried, they are very much sharing their information. And Villemille up to 4th place, ahead of Ferrier and chasing Sander Van Ness. Tom Coronel out front, and Coronel will be mighty relieved actually that the other 2 Dutch drivers have gone, because he was looking forward to winning this race, and he was saying, what I'll do, I'll just pump both of them out of the way on the run down to the first corner, he joked, and then I'll win it. In actual fact, they've all been punted off, and he may yet win it. Black flag still being shown for Peter Cox, who's refusing to come in. So Cox has passed it now at least twice, and possibly a 3rd time, and this is really stupid by Peter Cox. He comes in now, his last possible chance. I was going to say, if he goes past once more and passes the black flag for more than 3 laps, then he runs the risk of a penalty, and a penalty could include taking points away. Peter Cox in the pits as the race continues. Coronel from Morbidelli, Van Ness in 3rd, Villemille in 4th, Ferrier in 5th, Molinar in 6th in the Renault. Good drive by him. Here's Peter Cox. Oh, look at that tiny little bit of damage on the front of the car. Extreme left front corner, didn't even crack the headlight lens, just enough to put his rival off the road. Well, Peter Cox, black flag, ignored it for a couple of laps, but wisely the Roberto Ravaglia team said, get in the pits, do not dare pass it for a 3rd time, because then who knows what kind of sanctions could be imposed. And having seen what happened, it's just not worth risking it.
Duncan, you've had a minute now to calm down. It's a terrible way for your championship to end.
Well, it's not a happy end anyway. I had a very good start. Took me a flat tire, so therefore I was in front on the start-finish line at the end of lap 1 behind the safety car, because there was a nose in front, so I didn't have to back off. And at the restart, I was safe for a few meters. I was on the brakes, and Peter just, on the last moment, he went to the left to push me off. And he did it, I don't know the right word, I think on purpose. But it's a shame. A good season. Last 4 races I've been pushed off 3 times by the Ravaglia Motorsport team, and I think my team, the Carly Motorsport team, did a really great job. We had a superb car, and hopefully we'll be back next year. Thank you, Duncan.
Well, Heisman is right. He has done a superb job. 1st, 2nd or 3rd in every race he's finished, and as he said, well, shoved off, and despite that at the Nürburgring took 2nd place anyway. He saw Roberto Ravaglia there in the pits with Peter Cox, and clearly they will have a very different view. But as Heisman said, and we saw there in replay as he was saying it, he said Cox moved back over to the left to make contact, and you could clearly see the car turning to the left slightly enough to make contact with the back of the BMW. Coronel then from Morbidelli, and from Morbidelli this is a chance, because the CBME cars were frankly really midfield runners at the beginning of the year, struggling desperately, and only since they've been able to secure a Carly Motorsport engine supply, like the Carly cars, like the Ravaglia cars, have they been able to work themselves up to the front. And a win at the last gasp for Morbidelli and for the team would be a big fillip. But as we said earlier, Tom Coronel will be really happy to win this one. And Tom Ferrier, well, looking for maybe a chance on the podium. He's in 5th place at the moment. chasing Van Ness and Villemil, and there's certainly no guarantees that all these cars will finish the race in front of him. So a chance perhaps for him to score his best result of the season. James Hansen was third last time out at Harama, despite a lurid gravel trapping moment or two for the drivers in the first couple of laps, avoiding other people's problems. But Hansen, I'm afraid, 4 laps down now with 7 run, and James having a disastrous weekend, equally as Tom is having a good one here. So mixed fortunes there very much for those pair. But Tom Coronel coming out of the last corner and onto the straight again to complete lap 8. Down in the Ravaglia pits is Peter Cox. Let's hear his side of the story.
Peter, you received a black flag for the incident with Duncan. Do you think it was worth the black flag?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I just tried to overtake, and you know, we had a pace car situation, the tires were cold a little bit, and there was one dry line, and Duncan obviously tried to trick me a little bit with the pace car, but I think I was switched on enough. I have Tom Coronel behind me, and I just had a good run on him, and I took the opportunity. I mean, in the end, I'm a racing driver, you know, and you can see, I think, from the camera that I go out, you know, I go out, and then I realize, you know, this is wet, and I cannot hold the car, so, you know, and then I hit them on the side, and I think it's just racing, and it's absolutely not, I mean, I think we have seen much more harsher things this year, and to give me that now, obviously maybe it's the last race, to give me a black flag for this, I find this a little bit, you know, a bit crazy. I mean, we're fighting for the championship. I mean, you know, we do the start of the race, and immediately a Marlboro car is trying to hold me off and to block me. So, you know, I mean, I have to take every opportunity that I can take to overtake. And for me, you know, it's just a racing accident.
Well done for winning the championship. Thanks, Peter.
So, 2 drivers, 1 accident, 2 stories. David?
Yes, but as he said, he was trying to overtake, but how can you overtake when you're actually behind somebody? You've got to actually move out from behind them to be beside them in order to try and overtake. You can't overtake by running into the back of them. Well,
yeah, I would again like him to repeat those words as he watches the tape. He said, I moved to the inside to try and overtake, then I realised I wasn't going to make it through. The words he omitted were, then I turned left and hit the back of Duncan Heisman's car. So here's, yes, so... however, good battle going on behind here. Tom Ferrier again fighting with Louis Villemil, and he is squabbling there very strongly indeed. Ferrier got his nose in front for 4th place. Villemil fighting back there, who was in 4th as they came across the line last time. And as they come across the line this time, easing away Tom Coronel, and Gianni Morbidelli nearly a second behind him now. Sander Van Ness in 3rd, Villemil, Ferrier and Molinar in the Renault there in front of Ferrier now. So Molinar making a great move under braking. First time we've seen the Renault Clios in this championship. They've been running in Holland all year. As you can see, very nicely prepared, very well sponsored, well, not very, yes, well sponsored, well liveried up, nice looking cars and running very strongly indeed. And Molinar in that Renault Clio from, where was he on the grid? Oh yeah, on row 6 of the grid. That's not bad at all. Dives inside Tom Ferrier. And in these tricky conditions, maybe the front-wheel drive cars, David, with all the heat being generated in those front tyres, just having a little bit more under braking than the BMWs. BMWs tend to fare less well. Certainly Super Tourers have always done so. The colder it gets, the less front end they have. And with the rain earlier on and the breeze, it's still not very warm here. So perhaps that's starting to harm Tom Ferrier. Having said that, of course, the first 3 cars are still BMWs, so I may be talking out of my hat.
It's just a case of what you've got to work with at the time, and I don't know what they've done to the little Renault between qualifying and the race, but whatever it's done, it certainly worked, and they've managed to climb themselves up from 12th on the grid to 6th at this moment in time. So they're having a terrific race compared to their qualifying. On the other hand, Tommy Rustad's having a terrible race, having had that puncture early on. So he did get back out eventually onto the grid, but a long way down, so he wasn't on the back of the queue when he restarted the race. But he is going round at the moment. He's got the fastest lap of the race. It's approximately 1 second faster than everybody else, and he's last lap around about 0.7 of a second faster than everybody else out there. So he's definitely the fastest man, but unfortunately being all the way down in 14th place and some 54 seconds behind the leader, he's not going to make very big inroads.
No, he's not. He's in 14th. Alan Blenko in front of him in 13th, and Alan's last lap was at 4.7 seconds slower than Tommy's. So, no disrespect to Alan at all, but Tommy Rustad, a very fired up Norwegian indeed, and he is really piling on the pressure, so he's probably a couple of laps from being on the back of Alan Blenko. But this battle continues. The Renault having a bit of a mixed time actually, because although Molinar's going very well indeed, of course we saw Franz Verschoor pulling off at the end of the first lap, or the end of the fourth lap rather, into the pits, and so his car has stopped. And yeah, I like the look of this little Renault. Actually, it's really nice just to see different shapes and sounds and so on. You know, we've got it in the GTs and in the NGT category, we've got it in the Super Touring and the Super Production. Lots of variety, lots of different looks, lots of different teams running the cars, so you don't get all the BMWs looking the same and all the Alphas looking the same and so on. And really, really looking forward to seeing what kind of formula they come up with next year. I hope it's not too radical, I hope it's not too ridiculous, because everybody's looking very worriedly at next year in terms of reduced revenues for everything, and the offshoot of September the 11th terrorist outrages very much colouring people's view of next year's financial strategies that have already probably been put in place and laid down and now all being dragged back and reviewed. So I'm hoping for something that's close to super production, and maybe with more power from the engines, but certainly something that's not ludicrously expensive and will encourage manufacturers to sort of sit and wait a year or two, because with the momentum that these two championships are built up on the super racing weekends, there's an awful lot of interest in next year's super racing weekend. Touring car, saloon car, call it what you like, racing, and I really want to see some sensible rule decisions, and maybe, who knows, maybe half a dozen manufacturers, different cars out on the first grid of the year.
I think, well, I know that during this coming week, the manufacturers are all getting together to talk, to see what they can do to try and get as many people as possible onto this grid for next year. Remember, they're going to try and amalgamate these two championships we've been watching here today, the Super Touring Championship, which is now finished, and the Super Production Championship, which we've seen here this year for the first time in European guys for the European Championship. And as we've said all along, this weekend has been terrific, because we've got so many more people come along into the championship. Here we're watching little Renault, who's currently in 5th place, trying to get up there. And I think if he could just get past that little Alpha of Louis Villemille, then he'll set off in chase of the lead BMWs.
Yeah, that would be fun to see a newcomer get onto the podium. Would give credence to the fact that when you get a Europe-wide set of regulations, you don't always necessarily have the cream of the crop in the European Championship. You can get guys who are good at what they do, developing under fancied cars, and let's be honest, this is, you know, a car that's only raced in Holland, been developed in Holland, and without much wider experience, doing very well here against better developed and better supported cars, particularly the BMWs, rather than necessarily the Alfa, which is kind of, they're going their own way with the Alfas and doing a good job with it too. So you can get smaller, less well-funded privateer teams running less fancied equipment that can come out and put a good drive and a good team together with, you know, a good engineer to develop the car, and you can really have a fun runner.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make the championship more affordable for everyone. We've seen in the past year Super Touring, when it gets involved with the manufacturers, they spend many millions of pounds going racing, which is fine for a while, but eventually manufacturers think, you know, can we afford to spend this amount of money? And the short answer was, at the end of the day, it was no. So this is why it's coming to an end, and we now have to have some new regulations that are much more sensible and much more cost-effective. Motorsport is the same as every other business around the world. It revolves around the amount of money able to do it, and everyone looking to tighten their belts to make it a little bit more accessible for people to come and do things, and therefore you've got to be able to bring the price down, and Super Production has certainly done that, and they're trying to base, I would think, next year's championship, Super 2000 they're going to call it, very much around these Super Production cars, rather than the Super Touring, the more costly Super Touring cars we've seen earlier in the day.
Yeah, nobody wants cheap, and nobody wants cars that look like they're cheap, but they all want cost-effective, and that is the key to the whole thing, isn't it? And if somebody is angling for sort of DTM-style super-duper-dupers, then I think they will find themselves in a class of one, because most manufacturers, as we've said, are looking towards a variety, a variation of this, perhaps with a slightly more racy-looking tyres rather than the very production-looking tyres that they run at the moment. Maybe with a bit more power, just to... Well, actually, I have to say, with these tyres and a Super Touring engine, all right, the drivers would hate it, because after 5 laps of fun, it would suddenly start to be a real handful, but the fans would love it. Like Sander van Est there in 3rd place in his BMW, sliding it through a 125-mile-an-hour exit corner. That's what we want to see. We want to see cars all over the road. And these cars, are with their production brakes, David, and we did say this, you know, right from the very start, down into the first corner there, they're weaving around under braking. I mean, they look hard to handle. And as a fan, rather than as a driver or an engineer or anything else, I always think racing looks best when cars are obviously hard to handle, because then you sit in your armchair and you go, wow, and you think, although I've got a BMW or a Ford or whatever it is, I could never do that. When they go round on rails, everybody goes, oh yeah, well, you know, I can drive Toka Touring cars on my PlayStation, and this is the same, I could do that.
It's the Super Touring was like that because it had so much grip and so much power. It looked very much as though you're on rails. It felt that way when you were driving them. These cars, I drove one of these cars earlier this year, and they're very different. These cars are very much slipping and sliding around, as we're watching right this very minute.
Fantastic.
The 3rd place car there, slipping and sliding around. So it's much better to have that. It's much better to watch when you're watching it, because something is happening. You're not just watching somebody go round a corner on rails like some of the very high-speed single-seater cars do. But in actual fact, you're getting to see the driver working very hard, having to control oversteer, and you're getting, with smaller brakes, you have a much longer braking distance. If you've got a longer braking distance, you've got much more opportunity to try and have an overtaking manoeuvre. And the more overtaking manoeuvres you have, the much more interesting the racing is. So that's why things like Super Touring we've seen today, and production cars here now, when you see that overtaking, you've got something actually happening, rather than watching I don't know, say something like Formula 1, which once the work is done in qualifying, then they all go out and follow each other unless somebody makes a mistake in the pit stops.
Jonathan Palmer's great explanation of Formula 1, I always go back to. He said, imagine explaining modern Formula 1 to a Martian. You get a whole bunch of cars and drivers, you spend 2 days finding out which one's fastest, and then you spend 2 hours watching them all spread out. That's pretty much the way it goes, isn't it? So this is at least a variation on that, because Gianni Morbidelli here, he thinks he can win this one, and Tom Coronel thinks he can win this one too. Sander van Est might not at the moment, but I bet he reckons there's going to be a last lap dust-up between those two, and I don't think he's far wrong. And still, Villemil and Molinар sorting out 4th and 5th between them. Unfortunately, whoa, and Molinar's making the move here. Villemil's got the inside line again, but Molinar really pushing very hard now. 14 laps completed there on 15, and Molinar knows that time is running out for him. I think he sized up Villemil, and ooh, that was close. Villemil making a mistake, and Molinar right with him. So the leader, Tom Coronel, with a half-second gap over Gianni Morbidelli at the line. It's a little less around the back, and Coronel sliding a little less, keeping it a little neater than his teammate Sander van Est there in 3rd place. Lewis Villemil in 4th, and Donald Molinar in 5th spot in his Renault. So we have got 3 different manufacturers in the top 5 positions, BMW and Alfa Romeo and Renault. But I think Coronel will take some unseating here. Gianni Morbidelli will have to close his eyes from a long way back and aim at the curb on the inside of the first turn as they get down the straight, because I don't think he's going to get too many other opportunities. Villemil recovers from that little nudge and stays ahead of Molinar. There's Tom on his own in the Edenbridge car, Tom Ferrier. Oh, he's enjoying his last couple of laps of the season, isn't he? Look at that. That was gratuitous, David. No need for that other than it was fun.
It was just 4 great big black tyre marks left on the circuit. More rubber gone off the tyres just to make it even more slippy to drive for the last couple of laps when it gets round to it. But yeah, they're out there having fun. These cars do look superb when you watch them on the circuit. They do slip and slide around. It is close racing, as we said before we started, with all these cars, the top 12 cars within 1 second on the grid. And it was just absolutely terrific. All out there, very close. There's a bit of a pity about the accidents at the very beginning, where 2 cars were taken out before the first corner, and then the 2 championship contenders managed to be taken out at the start of the restart after the safety car. So that was a bit unfortunate. We lost those 4 people, and Tommy Rustad with the Nissan having his puncture. That was 5 cars gone from the front. But even with 5 cars gone out of the front, we still have this fight here for first between Tom Cornell, new to the championship, in a Carley Motorsport car. This is a car they've been racing back home. It's the first time they've brought it to the European Championship. It's just the same as their own cars. They've been racing with Duncan Heisman, etc. So they're right up there. They've got first and third place with the 2 new guys. But Gianni Morbidelli, he's been around a long time. He's been all the way to Formula 1 and back again. Now he's in this, and he sees this as a future. He's been in Super Touring cars as well, and he's seen this as a way forward, knowing that Super Touring cars was due to finish at the end of this year. And he's finished second once already this season, and I'm pretty sure he's out there. He would like to have that win before the end. He hasn't got very long left to do it, about
No,
a lap and a half. But he won't give up. I know Gianni, he's a little fiery Italian gentleman, and he'll just keep on going right to the very end.
Yeah, he, like Cox, was in the Super Tours last year in the European Championship course, and as you said, yeah, he and CBME have decided that BMW's Super Tourer was not available. They wanted to stay with BMW. CBME had long been a BMW supporter, and look at that battle behind as Villamil desperately wheezed to hold off Molinar onto the last lap. Coronel from Morbidelli by 1 car length, if that, as Coronel got a big slide going in there. Morbidelli in second place, as we said, with the CBME team staying with their BMWs, the cars they love, the factory they've worked so long with in the super production, and a learning year definitely, but to finish it with a win would be great for them. Sander Van Ness in third, Villamil fourth, across the line ahead of Molinar. We'll have to try and hold some long shots. I'd love the director to be able to hear us or occasionally pay attention to us, but they have a little strategy of their own, undoubtedly, that they probably won't explain to us. But Morbidelli, well, he is the leader. Oh, he is not the leader, the regular here, chasing leader Coronel. So we're staying with that battle. And Villamil and Molinar for 4th place will have to take its turn. Morbidelli down, right up behind him under braking, but I think that might have been his last chance. If he could got to the inside there or fought him, I don't think he'll be able to. Oh, he is. He's looking down the inside now. That's a tough one. Oh, and Sander Van Ness has a chance now as Tom Coronel's pumped it off. Gianni Morbidelli will be slow into this right-hander, David, and Sander Van Ness right with him. Well, let's have a look. He didn't go and try and hit him. He dived to the inside, but it is a tight corner there, and it goes down, and it does help you on the inside, but he was very, very late in alongside Tom Coronel.
He was trying very hard. You see, he locked the brakes up as he went in, but he tried very desperately to try and miss Tom, but couldn't do that, and managed to catch his door and turn him around. If that had happened between Peter Cox and Duncan Heisman, they would still have both been racing. But that wasn't what happened there, and as I said, Gianni was desperately trying to get this first win of the season. Here he is.
Checkered flag awaits, and he's going to take it by half a car length from Sander Van Ness. Gianni Morbidelli, not even that. Sander Van Ness pulls out of the line, but Gianni Morbidelli does win his first and only race of the season at the last gasp. Sander Van Ness in second place, Tom Coronel in third, and Donald Molinar taking 4th place at the line ahead of Lewis Villamil, Tom Ferrier in 6th place, and undoubtedly sideways and on the lock stops all the way around the last lap. Battles going all the way down the field. Pagan Anderson comes across the line in 8th, 1/10 of a second ahead of Paolo Ruberti in another of the CBME cars. But as you said, David, that was a genuine and honest attempt to make a clean overtaking manoeuvre on the last lap for the lead of the race. And Morbidelli, just in the end, could not control it. And I have to say, although Tom will be aggrieved at that initially from having been spun out, if he sits down and watches the video, he'll say, all right, well, I don't think that was a cynical move. And as you said, if Peter Cox had managed to turn in inside Heisman even too quickly, then they may well have both been still in the race after that restart incident, and who knows how it would have finished. But Morbidelli wins, and for the CBME team, that will be a big relief. That is a good result for them. Van Ness and Coronel, just visitors for the weekend, and second and third. Well, you could ask for more than that, and Tom will feel disappointed he didn't get more than that, but that's still pretty good indeed. Molinar, Villamil, Ferrier, then Gabellini. Stefano Gabellini, didn't really talk very much about him because he was sort of in that nether region between the front and the middle. Stefano Gabellini, he is Gianni Morbidelli's teammate at CBME. He was in 7th place. Pagan Anderson in the Paolo Ruberti, the 3rd CBME. But Alan Blanco at least getting to the end of his first ever European Super Production race in his Alpha. So there's the championship then. 3 points it was coming in. Exactly, Peter Cox and Heisman finishing as they started. Tommy Rostad was very much secure in third and stays there. And so that is the top three in the championship. And James Hansen, Tom Ferrier closing to just 2 points behind his teammate at the end of the year. So I'd have to say that's a pretty even result for them. Hansen having the best result